Today we're at the Deer Creek Catch Pen Trailhead in the Mount Charleston Wilderness. We're going to explore the route to Mummy's Forehead. There's Mummy's nose. When you're up in this area of Mummy's head, the nose, the forehead, and the chin are all mixed up. But when you see them from Las Vegas, you can actually make out the features. So we're going to head up toward the left side of Mummy's nose, circle the left side, and then head up a gully to the forehead. So let's see how all that goes. Here we go. We begin by crossing Deer Creek Road. We'll head up this trail, keeping to the right of this ridge on the left. Eventually we'll summit the ridge, but we'll be looking for the exact spot to make that summit. There's a nice gully. This trail that we're on is called the 7 Mile Trail. It's 7 Mile Canyon is where we are. We're approaching the first trail split. We want to take the left split. Remember, we're sticking to the base of the ridge on our left and looking for the point where we're going to find a gully to ascend that ridge. And just about 100 feet beyond that trail split, there's what looks like a faint old logging road, which splits to the left. And if you're looking at the contours of the ridge, which you can't really see very well through the trees, it looks like there's a kind of gully straight ahead. And that's going to help speed up our progress to the upper ridge line. So here we go. You can't really go wrong here, but what you're doing is feeling your way on this ridge to eventually arrive at this gully. I'm weaving around to the right and the left. Finally, I hit the gully. This is what you want. Now, you can't really lose because you could actually just head up the ridge. You want to get to the ridge top. The reason I go for this gully is that it's more streamlined and you avoid some of the obstacles that you'll have if you just headed straight up. And it's more gradual. Yes, this gully is steep, but it's not as steep as just trying to go up the ridge lines. And there are a few obstacles in the gully, but not as many as if you try to go up the ridge lines. A lot of fallen logs. Try not to put any of your weight on these logs. You don't know how secure they are. The last thing you want is to have one of these fall on your foot or your leg and trap you. So try not to put any of your weight on the logs as you head up this gully and any other gully where there are fallen trees. A lot of elevation gain in a short time. This is probably one of the steepest stretches you'll need to encounter today, except for the stretch as you get closer to Mummy's Forehead. And you see the horizon sky ahead. This is where you begin to angle over to the right to reach the upper ridge line. We'll look around when we get up on the upper ridge line and I'll describe the layout of 7 Mile Canyon and some of the approaches you can make to the Mummy's Head region. And by the way, remember this spot for on the way back. the gully is very hard to find on the way back, and you are led to head down in other directions, other gullies that look like this would be the gully. This is what you want. So mark it very carefully. Otherwise, yeah, you'll make it back, but it'll be a lot more effort and circuitous route in order to get back to the Deer Creek Catch Pen trailhead. Wow, look where we are on this ridgeline summit, or at least a high point. What a reward for a very brief climb. And if you came just to this point to look around, you definitely be rewarded. There's Mummy's Nose, and then main summit of Mummy Mountain. Then opposite canyon is the canyon where Camp Stimpson is located. In fact, there's what I refer to as the director's house. It may or may not be. But it is built of the same materials as Camp Stimpson. And then this is what things look like on the way back. And you know that as you descend this ridgeline, you don't want to go as far as that next high point, or you're going to be in a world of hurt. And here we are, mountain mahogany, beautiful pines all around. Now, I mentioned I'd show the layout of 7 Mile Canyon, and you could have stayed on that initial road, taking the left branch, and eventually, yeah, that would lead up to this area. I like the gully I chose because, yeah, it's a little more work, but you get up to the ridgeline much quicker. Notice that there's this ridgeline that I'm on, and there's an opposite ridgeline to 7 Mile Canyon. Remember below where there was that road split, and we took the left split to stay along the base of this ridgeline, the eastern ridgeline, until we reached the gully that we ascended. Well, if you'd taken the right split on the road, that would have led up toward the western ridgeline. The reason I mention that is that that is an awesome approach up that ridge to Mummy's Nose, which has an incredible 360-degree view. Look how it stands out. Nothing around it. And so that gives one of the best 360-degree views in southern Nevada. Anyway, you ascend that western ridge, and then between these high points, you circle around the backside of Mummy's Nose, and then head up to the summit. And it's not really hard by that route. In fact, I like this better than the Lee Canyon route as far as absence of obstacles and absence of that huge slope that you have to ascend if you come from Lee Canyon. So anyway, yeah, I like the Deer Creek Catch Pen approach to this entire Mummy's Head area. Now what we're going to do, as I mentioned, we're going to head around the left base of the Mummy's Nose Cliffs, And look for an ascent right in this area. Maybe it could be that area. We'll see as we get closer. Anyway, yeah, I think there's a right turn after you pass the Mummy's Nose cliff. And what you're looking at here is Mummy's Chin. So you ascend a gully up to Mummy's Chin. That's gully is where it gets really steep. And then Mummy's forehead is to the right of the chin, behind the nose. So anyway, yeah, that's so much for Mummy's head. And then what you're looking at is the main summit of Mummy Mountain. There's Mummy's knees, and you can see summits of all these high points on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. There's Mummy's Toe, beautiful summit area. It's like being on the bow of a ship. And then Fletcher Peak is around in this area. I think this might be Bristlecone Pine Ridge, and then Fletcher Peak would be behind that ridge. So there is our basic lay of the land here. And what we're going to do, like I mentioned, we're going to continue up this ridge, and we're going to begin to circle the left side of the Mummy's Nose cliffs. And I'll show you the point where we leave this ridge to do that. Here's a sweeping view from a high point on this ridge. There you see Mummy's Nose in the center. West ridge of 7 Mile Canyon. Desert terrain below. Sheep range, you'll probably see it better on the way back when the sun's in better position. Gas Peak, Angel Peak. And here's the Camp Stimpson Canyon. Mummy's Toe, Mummy's main summit, and back to Mummy's Nose. And by the way, it's the second week in August. Temperatures are slated to be 107 degrees in the Las Vegas Valley at the altitudes we will be at, given 5-degree temperature loss per 1,000 feet, going from 2,000 up to the heights that we will be attaining today. We'll probably be in 70 degrees most of the day. This is a good place to describe just where and how you angle along the left side of the base cliffs of Mummy's Nose ahead. And we're going to descend from this high point, ascend a bit, and I'll show you where we take the all-important left turn to angle along the left base of the cliffs. We want to be in this area, and the key is to be high enough that you miss the deep gullies that occur at the lower elevation, and yet you're not high enough that you're going to be in really steep terrain. So that's the key. You want to end up somewhere around here, maybe this area here, but we'll see. As this ridge winds around and approaches Mummy's Nose, you want to hang over to the left side of the ridge because you want to be looking at those lower cliffs and see where the best crossing point's going to be so that you can avoid the huge gullies below. They're actually much more shallow up closer to the cliff, but you don't want to get too high or you're going to be walking sideways on a very, very steep slope. I forgot about this distinctive limestone formation on the eastern ridgeline. And this is the point, who needs a cairn? This is the point where you're going to start angling to your left at the Goldilocks, not too high, not too low point that's going to skirt the lower edge of the Mummy's Nose cliffs. Here's another look at that limestone pillar marker. And this time we can turn around and see there is actually a little path, and you can see how the gully to the left is a lot more shallow. And so this is actually right at the limestone pillar is the place to turn left to begin angling across the base of the Mummy's Nose cliffs. And then our next big turn is going to be turning down into the Stimpson Gully, much higher than Camp Stimpson. And we'll show you where we turn down from this high point and begin angling toward that gully. And by angling our route this way, we minimize the uphill and downhill. Okay, we're angling our way upward and along this slope. I guess I could have continued up the center, which might have been a bit less of a slope angle, but there is a type of pathway, very faint pathway, and you can see where the gully's pretty deep. You don't want to cross it here. You want to get higher to cross this first gully. Here we are at the first gully crossing, and you can see where below it would have been pretty brutal. A lot of descent and reascent, but at this height, it's not so bad. In fact, I think that what I'll do on the way back is, yes, cross around here, maybe a little above, and land somewhere on the ridge, the eastern ridge, up in this area, and then head down to that pillar marker. I think that I turned too soon by turning at the pillar marker because I ended up traversing a very steep slope. It wasn't horribly hard, and there was a little pathway probably from last time I did this. Um, but yeah, it'd be easier to get across to the eastern slope or eastern ridge, which we're looking at here, eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon, and then head down to the pillar and then circle around to the Deer Creek Catch Pen trailhead where we started. But for now, we're ascending this second ridge line. We'll see what's beyond that. Looking back on that first gully, yes, I think I'll cross it a little higher on the way back. And then looking over in this direction, this looks like a good elevation to tackle the next gully. We'll take a look at it when we hit the horizon here. And here's the second gully crossing. I think I'm at a good altitude now. I crossed that other gully just slightly, like 50 feet too low. But yeah, you can see the logs there and a limestone boulder up there. And technically on the way back, yeah, cross above that boulder, above these logs, and there's another boulder up there, so I guess between the two boulders would make a great crossing. So there's the second gully, and you can see how shallow the gullies are at this altitude. So this is pretty nice. To me, it's got a better view, and it beats being way down in the Stimpson Gully below. Besides, you'd be walking through private property and a youth camp. Not good. And here we are at the third gully crossing. And yeah, another way to gauge the Goldilocks elevation, it's between 9,200, 9,500 feet. I'd say hit that right about in the middle and you should be good. I'm at 9,478 feet right now. And let's look around this gully. Yeah, you can see Mummy's Nose cliffs above us. And then looking around this direction, it's a little shaky here. So beautiful up here. Definitely in the bristlecone zone, which starts around 9,000 feet. And bristlecones will have fully taken over around 10,000, 10,500 feet. But yeah, here we are. And just a quick look, you can see Deer Creek Road below. Let's zoom in on it. There it is. So it's always good to have perspective. And then there is the parking area at the base of the Stimpson Gully on Deer Creek Road, actually. Big parking area, also doubles as an emergency search and rescue helicopter landing location. Okay, continuing on over the next ridge line. We're on the ridge before the fourth gully. There was a little divot gully, so this could be the fifth, but let's call it the fourth. And the reason I stopped here is that I believe this is the site of an unrecorded plane crash somewhere up on the Mummy Cliffs up there. And you could either ascend the gully below, and I'll correct if that's one gully too soon. I think that's the gully. We'll see. You can either ascend that gully or you can ascend this ridge. I think the ridge actually might be a little better of a shot. Missed some of the vertical stuff in the gully below, so I'd ascend the center of this ridge. I have not done that yet. I have not actually seen the fuselage. I've just seen pieces, down in the gully below, and we'll see some of that when we cross that gully in just a moment. But anyway, yeah, we're on the ridge before the fourth gully, and you can see everything's pretty steep here. What a slope, but what a beautiful view all around. Look at this. And then we're looking through the bristlecones to Angel Peak. Military radar installation. Okay, onward, and let's check out this gully to see if this next gully, the fourth gully, is indeed the plane crash gully. Okay, we're at the fourth gully crossing. This is one crossing, one gully too soon. No sign of plane wreckage in this fourth gully. But wow, look at the view. You see the La Madre Mountains now. And there's La Madre Mountain with Devil's Slide. It's a little faded out by the sun and the haze. Fires in California. There's Deer Creek Road. And here's looking across this fourth gully. And here's looking up the fourth gully toward Mummy's Nose Cliffs. So let's continue on. We're on the ridge before the next gully. If the next gully is indeed the plane crash gully, those are the cliffs where the plane impacted, somewhere up there. And this ridge might be a good way to get up to the upper area and just see if you can find the fuselage of the plane. But we're just not sure at this point. Here we are looking back. Beautiful bristlecones sculpted into impossibly creative shapes. And here's a majestic living bristlecone. These pines live over 4,000 years. These are probably in the 2,000 year area, maybe 1,500. Okay, let's continue on, see what this next gully holds for us. And then you can see Simpson Gully below Stimpson Gully. And the goal is to land in the Stimpson Gully about this same altitude, 9,000, between 9,400 and 9,500 feet. So that helps us avoid being in the gully below. Although I gotta say, navigating along the edge of this slope has its own challenges, and we have only clocked in about 2 miles so far. I think it's over 3 hours. In a very long ridge crossing after that last gully, and you can see the Stimson Gully, which is also the North Fork of Deer Creek. It's rising up to meet us at this elevation eventually. We'll see how that goes. But here you see the eastern cliffs of Mummy's Nose. And looking across this long ridge line, there were a few divots in the ridge line that I'm sure amounted to gullies below. But yeah, hardly a place to stand here. I imagine they amounted to other gullies below, but at this altitude, still around 9,470 feet. At this altitude, everything's pretty much smoothed out at this point. But let's go ahead and continue on. I think there's a large gully coming up. Maybe that's the plane crash gully. Maybe I passed it. We don't know. And here we are landing in the Stimpson Gully, or North Fork of Deer Creek. And there's a cairn I think I put there a few years ago. Nobody comes here, so that'll probably stay there for a long time till the next big flood. Anyway, yeah, we're landing in the gully right at the elevation we have been at through this whole ridge line along the slopes, the eastern slopes of Mummy's Nose. And here we are looking up the gully, and this area is around where Mummy's chin is. Mummy's forehead is to the right. See if I can turn here. Still on a slope with loose rock. Okay, yeah, there we go. So here's the eastern cliffs of Mummy's Nose. Here is the slope we have been traversing. There's Angel Peak. Here's the gully, the Stimpson Gully. There's my cairn, marking the point where you ascend this ridge once you've descended to this point in the gully on the return trip. There's looking up again, and there you have it, full circle. And here we are in the upper Stimpson Gully, and Mummy's forehead would be around the corner up there where you see the cliff, and behind the cliff to the right. Cairn marking the spot to head up the slope for the return trip. And definitely thick forest where we are. Okay, the thing now is to avoid brush and other obstacles in this gully. I'm gonna start out by, well, it looks like there's obstacles everywhere, so I'm gonna just feel this out and head up the gully. The thing that we want to miss the lower edge of those cliffs. So we're gonna circle around the left side of those cliffs, and then I think we'll see more of a pathway ahead of us. After the initial barriers below, didn't take a whole lot of time. You can see where things are clearing up a little bit. No huge obstacles ahead. There's the cliffs. We want to skirt the left edge of those cliffs, lower left edge. Here's an optional bypass on the left side of the gully. There's the gully below. And yeah, it's not too bad down there, but the bypass is pretty good too. You can see a pathway here, whether it's animal or human. Somebody thought this was a good idea. And then here's the look around. as I was ascending this bypass, and you can see the pathway below us, and looking at the gully, I would say it's not optional. It's actually a better way to ascend. So definitely take the bypass. It's going to lead up to this area. You can see we are ready to circle the lower left side of the cliffs above. And there's an obstacle, I remember, ahead here where there's a dry fall barrier. And the big question is where to ascend to the right to bypass that barrier. It could be here, but it could be further up. So let's just continue up the gully and see what things look like up there. Here's where I came from. Continuing up the gully, but I'm making liberal use of bypasses. You can see you can bypass on the left, but this one to the right is looking very interesting. So I'm going to head up this way. The center of the gully just has a whole lot of obstacles in it. So the name of the game is find your bypass and don't let it lead to a dead end. And you can see these cliffs on the right. Yeah, we want to pass on the left side, circle the left side of those cliffs. But yeah, it's looking all right. Well, after heading up this steep slope forever, I get to this point and I look over. There is the gully immediately below. So it seems like I've gained a whole lot of altitude. Well, actually, I have. I believe that this rock is the marker where you need to circle around the right side and then you meet the gully above a barrier. If you get to this pillar, I think you've gone too far. Not sure, but we'll find out soon. I'm going to hang right along the edge of this limestone rock, and if it's the same one I was on last time, I'm right on track, and I circle around the upper edge and then land in the gully above. Very high vertical dry fall. Boy, has this been steep. Straight up. Let's see how far we are from the gully after all this. Oh, by the way, yeah, look around. We are almost at the base of the cliffs. And I'm trying to turn. There's not much space here. It's so steep and it's loose rock. But it looks like we're leveling off a little bit here. And another 3 football fields, I think, will be at Mummy's forehead. But we don't know for sure. And okay, let's look at that gully. There's the gully down below. So maybe I could have ascended the gully a little further. I don't know if the barrier is right down below us here or if it's further up, but that looks like the continuation of the gully right in there where it gets really steep, like hands and knees steep. Anyway, I'm going to try going up in this direction It seems to be the direction toward Mummy's forehead. Mummy's chin is over in the other direction, the other side. In fact, we don't know. That could be it up there. You can't see the forehead right now, but yeah, that could be the chin, and this could be the ridge saddle between the forehead and the chin, and then the forehead up in this direction. But we really don't know. Um, I'm about 1,000 vertical feet and about a half mile, if you can imagine that. Ascending 1,000 feet in just a half mile. That's what we need to do to continue upward. So I'm going to head around this direction and let's see what happens. Okay, here is the next chute further up. Maybe I could have ascended this, maybe I would have been blocked by a dry fall. We don't know. All I know is that I ascended one chute across, down from this one, and it worked really well. So now it's just a matter of traversing this area. As you can see, continuing on upward. And yeah, I can't say much about where I am yet. Let's see what happens over the ridge. Seems like no matter how high I think I'm going on this ridge, I look to my left and the gully's only a few feet below. So yeah, that's interesting. But who knows what obstacles I missed in that gully. And it just appears that this is some kind of track going somewhere. Very, very faint. So yeah, look at the bristlecones here. So beautiful. That one's got to be a couple thousand years old. Mummy's forehead is somewhere up in this direction. And you can see this area I've been traversing. Yeah, it's really hard to say what a best route is at this point. I see routes coming up from the gully below, but I know there's a dry fall down there that is a huge barrier, impassable. So, maybe the dry fall's right down in this area. And I know this is above the dry fall. So for what it's worth, we're about 10,300 feet at this point. Mummy's forehead is 11,000 feet. So 700 feet, but boy, is this going to be a challenging 700 feet. So looking for a good route up. Let's see what happens. And by the way, there's the saddle area between the forehead and the chin. And look at the limestone formations. So beautiful limestone does. It's very porous, and so it lends itself to being carved by the elements into amazing shapes. And I failed to mention that, yeah, another huge bristlecone was right behind me. Look at this. Yeah, that's a couple thousand years, maybe 1,500 years old. I'm basing it on the size of rain tree, which we know is about 2,000, 2,500 years old. So This is just a little smaller around the trunk than rain tree. Okay, let's continue on up this way and just see where things lead. You guessed it, there's the gully again, almost immediately below us. Let's see. I believe that there's a kind of split here that heads up in this direction for Mummy's chin, in this direction for Mummy's forehead, and it looks like this direction, straight up, is the route to Mummy's forehead, just going up this way. So, yeah, let's go ahead and keep exploring up here. Anyway, this is what it looks like about 10,500 feet, 500 feet below the elevation of Mummy's forehead, if you were ever wondering. A lot of bristlecones here. Beautiful terrain. And the limestone never ceases to amaze. Look at that. Surrounded by bristlecones and limestone. And let's now continue up. Bristlecones up here take the most amazing sculpted shapes. Look at this. Continuing up, weaving my way around, we'll see what tends to be a path and what has a dead end. Well, it's steep here and not a whole lot to stand on, but just wanted to give you an idea what the terrain looks like. About 400 feet below Mummy's forehead. There's a lonely little pinnacle toward the chin. Set the chins higher. Probably about 500 feet below the chin. So, yeah, let's continue up. It looks like it might level off somewhere up here, but looks can be deceiving. We'll find out soon. Or late. Well, now we're within 220 feet elevation gain left out of something like 3,000 from the car. And yeah, it's leveling off a little bit, at least what I can see ahead, right along the edge of this cliff. So that's looking good. And here's looking around. I'm sitting in the fork of a tree here. Gives me a little more stability. Wow. Maybe the steepest is over, but I can say for sure we may be looking at a butt slide on the way down. Wow, this is steep and loose. Not up here as much as what I've already ascended, but beautiful, beautiful just to be up here. Here's a little bit of that cliff traverse, getting around the outside of this fun little tree here was great. Boy, what an incline. Even the trees are having a hard time holding on. Look at this. Just did this traverse along the edge of the cliffs. They're on the left. And yeah, look at Angel Peak down there. And what lies ahead? This lies ahead. We don't know what part of this is going to get me up to the saddle between the forehead and the chin. We shall see. Have to round another corner, get a better perspective. Look at this bristlecone. Wow. It's just amazing. They can grow way up at this altitude. We're closing in on 11,000 feet, seemingly out of the rock of the cliffs. And in fact, they don't grow lower than 9,000 feet. So they're just made for this altitude. Ancient trees. And guess what? Just 120 feet from the summit. We're looking back, by the way. There's a little trail along with cairns. Interesting. I guess they give you this trail if you can make it this far. You're on your own before this. And let's take a look up. Not the best security here. You can see a lot of loose rock. Still the little trail heading up. So let's just see how far we can get here. And look at this sweeping view below us. Yeah, I'm holding on for dear life with one hand here as I take the video. So, yeah, let's continue up. Here we are again on the saddle between Mommy's chin up ahead and the forehead behind. It is like a vortex. Keeps sucking me up right into this area. Not sure what I'm going to do, but Wow, what a spot. There's Lee Canyon. That's the ski area. You can see some of the ski runs over in this direction. That's got to be Amargosa Overlook. Maybe. I know Clinton and Reagan Peaks are also in that area. So, not sure which those are. Let's gain a little more altitude here. See what we can see. Wow. Yeah, there's Lee Peak on the right, Charleston Peak on the left. Bigger view of Mummy's Chin. Everything's vertical around here. And this is the direction for Mummy's Forehead. I don't feel like climbing over those rocks at this point. Maybe I do that with a climbing partner and some equipment, but not just soloing it like I am. So there you have it. Another trip to the saddle, only this time we took the Mummy's Forehead cliff edge coming to the saddle. In final altitude, less than 100 feet from the summit of the chin and the summit of the forehead, wherever that is. Wow. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to circle around, head back down, see if I can hit that gully and not dangle myself on the edge of the cliff slope on the way back. But we'll see. Like I said, it could be a butt slide. It's just so beautiful up here. Charleston Peak. If you've been there, maybe you can recognize some of the features of the summit. So, okay, down we go. Okay, let's see if I can remember how to get down. Um, I did this loop about a year ago, but I turned around and came down right um, after I summited. So anyway, let's see how that works. Well, curiously, I seem to remember traversing this slope. So let's start out by doing that. Interestingly enough, we can see the goal below all the way down to Deer Creek Road. Wish I could fly. But we need to get to the gully that is between this ridge and the ridge across. And by the way, there's a great view of Mummy's Nose. Okay, let's see about traversing this stretch and then descending into the gully. This traverse route is working fairly well. I've come down to this point and I can actually see the gully down there below. So we'll see what things look like when we get close to the gully. Well, here we are in the upper gully, having made this traverse. But wow, it's steep up here. So we need to get down there before we can actually feel like we're on something other than a very steep, loose rock slope. So let's see how that goes. So far, so good. Okay, came down from above, and now it's a matter of descending this little chute, and hopefully things will get a little more level by the time we get down to, there's a tree down there somewhere, right there. We're back at the gully landing here. Now it's just a matter of traversing the slopes at about 9,600 feet and um, ending up at that final ridge that takes us down to the Catchpin Trailhead. Back at the limestone pillar marker, and we'll show you the alternate route back to the Deer Creek Catchpen Trailhead. It should be very soon that we find a trail that's going to descend to the canyon as opposed to staying on the ridge. And this trail that descends to the canyon is going to be a more streamlined route. So hopefully we'll be able to find it, but look how beautiful it is in the evening sunlight. Just amazing. Okay, let's find that trail that descends into the canyon as the streamlined route. Okay, here's a very small cairn that I placed on the ridge. And this is where the descent trail begins, right down this way. So you're going to descend into the canyon and you're going to connect with a road, and it's going to make things go a lot faster than if you stayed on the ridge, although the ridge definitely presents some beautiful views. Okay, down we go. So a little trail winds down toward the gully below. And this little trail, you could lose it, but you just keep going toward the gully and you will eventually hit the top of a road. So let's go see what that looks like. And the little trail has landed. right on this nice trail. I guess it doubles as a forest road, 092A maybe. Um, Look at the map on Las Vegas area trails for the exact number. But yeah, just head down this road now. Very streamlined, take you down to the Deer Creek Catch Pen Trail. And by the way, there's a little cairn at the bottom of this little trail where the 092 road meets the trail that takes you up to the ridge top. So if you're coming from below, this is a good marker. Let you know to turn up the ridge. And if you're just coming up from the Deer Creek Catch Pen Trailhead, you want to go up that ridge and then take a right to the limestone pillar. The evening lighting is just amazing. Within about an hour, 2 hours maybe, of sunset. So if that's all you do, you'll be glad you did it. Okay, let's continue.